Welcome to 2023 Elections Update. Election is crucial to the building of every democracy. Election is everybody's business. As Liberians prepare to go to the polls, Public Trust Media Group, PTMG, presents 2023 Elections Update, keeping track of the electoral process. This is a half-hour radio program exclusively devoted to elections issues in the countdown to the 2023 presidential and legislative elections, and this is edition number 3. I'm Frank Sainworla in Monrovia. Here are what we will be updating you on today on this program. Some 9 months to presidential and legislative elections, NEC accredits hundreds of civil society organizations to help in civic and voter education across Liberia.
43 represented the 300 plus organizations, community-based organizations, faith-based organizations that applied for accreditation.
State security forces and the media make commitment to respect terms in the first comprehensive national framework document on ensuring safety of journalists ahead of the October 10 polls.
Politicians and their supporters are consistently using community radio stations to continue to call on the people of Bonkande to vote for them.
Amid reports of pre-campaigning activities by political actors around the country, a Liberian elections expert tells us what the elections laws say about exactly pre-campaigning is.
Pre-campaigning is any activity that is engaged in by a political party or an individual who intends to contest the election, to put that person ahead of the other or aspirants or political parties.
This is the time we come together to keep our country safe forever.
What does the campaign finance regulations say about contribution, expense, and personal expenses? Also coming up, our regular segment on who is eligible to vote under Liberian law. This is edition number 3 of 2023 Elections Update, a PTMG production in partnership with this station and several other radio stations, and as a podcast online. Ballots, not bullets. So stay focused on the issue in the countdown to the October polls.
Wake up, Mother Liberia, wake up, wake up. Wake up, Mother Liberia, wake up. The word is here to wake you up.
Welcome once again. This program will bring you in-depth coverage of the elections, what lessons have been learned from past elections. It focuses on the issues, not personalities, spotlighting the laws, guidelines, and regulations governing the electoral process, as well as the civic roles and responsibilities of both voters and those to be voted for. This program also promotes free, fair, transparent, credible, and violence-free presidential and legislative elections. Thanks very much for joining us. Some 9 months to presidential and legislative elections, a civic and voter education task force is being put together with the National Elections Commission NEC supervising the exercise. More than 300 civil society organizations are expected to be involved in the nationwide exercise. As the NEC Director of Civic and Voter Education, Paul Wilson, tells our reporter Issa Farr, community and faith-based organizations will be expected to sign up to guidelines of code of conduct governing the electoral process.
Well, again, we are making progress. In furtherance of our activities, we met with civil society organizations to review the code of conduct. Those are guidelines that will guide our interrelationship as we move to the Elections Commission, to the electoral process. Normally, we work with the civil society organizations. We've just reviewed the applications to the NEC, and then hopefully more than 300 plus will be certificated. But we need to provide guidelines that will guide our own operations so we can have a cordial relationship in the execution of our responsibilities. So 43 represented the 300 plus organizations, community-based organizations, faith-based organizations that applied for accreditation. And we want to use the accreditation process to encourage partners, international partners that are seeking to sponsor civil society organizations, faith-based organizations, community-based organizations, to source from our basket, the accreditation basket, to see how well they can assist, so that we can have that uniformity in the messaging, and that our work can be coordinated more perfectly. So we are encouraging partners to come in our accreditation basket to source those organizations that they feel they can use that will meet their standard, so that they can be able to carry on the civic and voter education activities across the country.
The COC, or the Code of Conduct, is basically for civil society organizations.
Sure. Civil society organizations, those are rules and regulations that we should follow. And then in Article 8 of that Code of Conduct, it calls for the establishment of the civic and voter education accreditation task force. I mean, CSO task force.
Okay.
Yeah, national task force. So they are not in the formation process. We'll develop that, then we'll talk about the MOU between the CSO and the commission, so as to be able to determine the way forward in doing what we feel is will guarantee our relationship in the working process.
So what is the statistical breakdown of those concerns, CBOs and faith-based organizations?
Yeah, well, we have to work along with the churches. Some of the churches have the youth organization. They have members of the elderly. And we think to get to every organization or every part of Liberia, there's a need to touch every stakeholder. And the church being the moral of our society, we think it is important to get to them so that on a Sunday, they can say something about the electoral process to their congregation. Also in their schools, they can also talk about the electoral process. We also engage in CSO that will be able to get to towns and villages where the NEC cannot reach. They can help in assisting taking the electoral messages to our people. So the community base are also situated in the communities. During their time, they can also have a conversation with their people in different conversations to see how well the electoral process can touch every sector of our society.
What is the goal or objective behind this code of conduct, and do you have any penalty for anyone who breaks that midway the electoral process?
We can revoke your accreditation, and then if there's any grievous crime, we turn it over to the government so that they can take the necessary action, because NEC does not have prosecutory power to punish people. But I think the code of conduct is just to guide our work, not to look for those who will, transgress or what have you.
Paul Wilson, Director of Civic and Voter Education at the National Elections Commission. He was talking there to our reporter Issa Farr. Besides transparency and credibility of the ongoing electoral process, there is concern about ensuring a violence-free election. This includes the safety of journalists who are watchdogs of society and who are indispensable to ensuring free, fair, and democratic elections. Ahead of the October 2010 presidential and legislative election, a comprehensive national framework for the safety of journalists has been launched in Liberia. Launched in Monrovia recently, the framework was developed by the Media Foundation for West Africa with support of its national partner, the Center for Media Studies and Peace Building in Liberia, CIMES. Both state security forces and Liberian media stakeholders were involved in putting the framework document together aimed at reducing impunity for crimes against journalists. Malcolm Joseph is Executive Director of CIMES.
The Safety of Journalists document that we launch here today is intended to fill that void created by the lack of national consensus on a commitment to protect journalists from acts of impunity.
Deputy Information Minister for Administration Daniel Gayadu proxied for Information Minister Lejehu Renning to launch the comprehensive framework document at the YMCA in Monrovia.
And for a long time, we have just been having this conversation nationally. Everybody giving their views, exchanging views, giving their opinions on how things should be done. And this is the first time that we've come together to formally address these issues as a country. I want to congratulate CIMES and those who funded the program for this initiative. You know, I always say that the part of Liberia that you find yourself standing is the part that you have to manage, because the government will not do all. No government in any country does all. That's why they say, especially in democratic government, they say it's for the people, of the people, and by the people. So it's of you. And CIMES has demonstrated that. And one thing that is peculiar to this is like it gives the prescription to minimize or prevent the exposure of journalists to harm.
A Deputy Information Minister for Administration, Daniel Gayadu. Well, Liberia's Joint Security Forces, which includes the Armed Forces of Liberia, AFL, the Executive Protection Service, EPS, and the Liberia National Police were all actively involved in putting together the comprehensive framework for the safety of journalists. The police chaired Liberia's Joint Security Commission. Police spokesman Moses Carter pledged the Joint Security Forces' commitment to implementing the framework on the safety of journalists and urged the press to also respect their side of the bargain.
Not finish until it is finished. That is to say, the crafting, launching of this framework document today does not end the issues of journalists coming into harm's way in their reportorial duties. What this framework does is to put, a stop or to ensure that journalists can carry out their work in a safe environment. We urge CIMEX to follow up on this document religiously. We urge Internews and other partners that are interested in press freedom to follow this document religiously in its implementation.
Police spokesman Moses Carter.
We took this break to bring you this special information. Public Trust Media Group, along with several radio stations, including this station, brings this weekly production of 2023 Elections Update to fill you in with the laws, processes, and happenings relating to Liberia's elections on October 10. This program informs and educates you, our listeners, including first-time voters. Public Trust Media Group, however, looks up to you, Liberia's development partners, civil society organizations, and pro-democracy group for partnership and sponsorship of this program. Please email us on fsainworla@yahoo.com or call 0770-755-173 or 0888-311573. Thanks for being part of the change maker.
As we said at the beginning, this program focuses on the issues, not personalities, spotlighting the laws, guidelines, and regulations governing the electoral process. One of such laws is the Campaign Finance Regulations, which was signed by the 7 NEC commissioners and printed on May 5, 2016. One of the reasons behind this instrument is to ensure a level playing field in the electoral contest. It is intended to monitor and guide the level of financial spending and contributions to candidates and political parties during elections. But it would seem not many people know what it contains. The Campaign Finance Regulations define 3 key things when it comes to financing electoral campaigns: contribution, expense, and personal expenses.
First, the campaign finance regulations say contribution means a gift, subscription, loan, advance, or deposit of money, or anything having pecuniary value which is donated to a candidate, campaign treasurer, or a political party for use during an election campaign. It includes donations by a political party to the campaign of one or more candidates supported by the party, donations by any candidate to his own campaign, and donations in kind, gifts, goods, and services, except the value of services of individuals who volunteer without compensation, and the value of loans made in the ordinary course of business where repayment is required and interest is charged. According to the campaign finance regulations, expense means any purchase, payment, distribution, loan, advance, deposit, or gift of money or anything of value that is either made by a candidate or political party for an election campaign, or which is made with the knowledge and consent of a candidate or an authorized agent of a candidate or political party for an election campaign. An expense shall also include disbursements for any news story, commentary, or editorial distributed through the facilities of any broadcasting station, newspaper, magazine, or other periodical publication, or such facilities that are owned or controlled by a candidate or a political party. Finally, this is how the campaign finance regulations define personal expense. The term personal expenses means all expenses that a candidate would have incurred, irrespective of his or her candidacy, such as payments for personal clothing, rent, mortgage, utilities, vacations, personal expenses of family members, and other expenses that are not related to campaigning for office. Political party means an association registered as a political party which supports a candidate or candidates in an election.
Well, if you've just joined us, this is 2023 Elections Update, a half-hour radio program exclusively devoted to elections. In the countdown to the 2023 presidential and legislative elections, ballots, not bullets. Welcome, I'm Frank Sainworla in Monrovia. This is edition number 3. This program keeps track of the electoral process. This is a Public Trust Media Group PTMG production in partnership with this station and several other radio stations every week.
Let no tribe or tongue divide. Our heritage is one. Let our aims and dreams unite. Our destiny is one. Let's build a new society.
Besides the issue of voters stroking, where people who do not live in a given constituencies are ferried to other parts by candidates, there's another election law violation called pre-campaigning. We'll go into exactly what that is. But first, let's go to Bond County, where there are reports that many of this kind of pre-campaigning activities are taking place. Earlier, before coming on air, I talked to Public Trust Media Group correspondent in Banga, Emmanuel Mafala. What is the level of pre-campaigning in Bond County?
Let me say thank you so much for giving us in Central Liberia this opportunity. For us in Bond County, the case is not strange. It has been happening, and this is the same thing that is happening. Politicians and their supporters consistently using community radio stations to continue to call on the people of Bond County to vote for them. Like Senate in District number 5, the representatives of that district, Honorable Kafia, has said that he will not be seeking to re-election, so he has decided to go for the senatorial seat. So when he was addressing citizens of that community, he told them that no, I am the best person, vote for me come 2023 October 10th. He said it is important because if you vote for me, the issue about reconciliations and other things will be achieved in the county. And it is not just him. The former agriculture minister, and he has been in the senatorial race. Dr. Mukana Flomo was on one of the community radio stations here in Radio Banga, and he said that look, don't vote for this person, don't vote for that person, because they don't have what it takes to be senator. Vote for me.
So they actually soliciting votes.
Yeah, soliciting vote. But what has happened? There have been other civil society organizations like Mr. George Philip Moba, who happened to be the coordinator of the Justice and Peace Commission, the regional coordinator. He has said, look, it is not called for because it is only the National Elections Commission that has that authority to declare campaign open. But if we see people in the county and they start to tell people, say, vote for me, if yes, you can sell your candidate, but not to say vote for me at this time. It is still early. So they were calling on the upper bound election magistrate, Mr. Daniel Newden, so that he can be able to talk to people in the county, so that they can stop canvassing, so that they can start soliciting votes, so that they can start telling people say vote when we are not in campaign time. But when we get to Mr. Newland, because he was in Monrovia these few days, so he has promised that he's going to be addressing the media on today as to the guideline when for people to start campaigning, when we're going to have candidates, because you are aware that right now we doesn't have a candidate. So once the name come out to say yes, this person is contesting, and the National Elections Commission will come out with a specific day to say that yes, you can start the wrong campaign. But I think there are mixed reactions in the country, to be honest.
And they are currently aspirants. And I understand besides radio talk, soliciting votes, some of the politicians are also going around with T-shirts and posters and decking vehicles with paraphernalia, soliciting votes for them in the 2023 elections.
Yeah, so what you see now in Bon County, you're going to see a lot of flyers. But what is on that flyer, it is not yet vote for me or vote for XYZ, but it is there that the friends of this, unless the ruling party, which you're going to have that T-shirt, it is there, Georgia 2023, but you cannot have on it that vote this person. But you can have, there have been T-shirts in the county, people are printing T-shirts. What is on it is the friends of XYZ, the friends of this. That is what happening in the country.
But those friends,
community, yes.
Emmanuel, finally, those friends of this and that are actually engaging the citizens and actually telling them who to vote for.
Yeah, it is clear. That one, it is not a secret. People are moving from communities to community. Like the Johnny Quay, his supporters recently, they were on the radio. They say vote for Johnny for development, vote for Johnny for education, vote for Johnny for this. The former superintendent for the county, Dr. Rennie Banama Jackson, his supporters, they have a radio program on one of the community radio stations they call Born for Rennie. So that platform, it is there to sell the message of Dr. Rennie. And when the guys are on the radio, they tell their supporters and they tell the people of the county, vote for this. Vote for Rennie for this. Vote for Rennie. You're going to have this. Vote for this person. This. So that gets the message that people continue to preach in the county. Vote, 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 vote.
Yeah, thank you very much, Emmanuel.
Thank you.
And as the News Public Trust correspondent in Bon County, Emmanuel Mafala, contributing to 2023 elections update. Well, according to the new election law, pre-campaigning is a serious violation of the law regarding the electoral process. Some people have begun to raise eyebrows about activities that look like pre-campaigning. In previous elections, NEC had warned that the electoral body would take action against political parties and politicians said to be involved in pre-campaigning activities around the country. But what really does pre-campaigning entail? One man who knows this very well is a Liberian elections expert, Mr. Joseph Yasia, who used to be the head of political affairs at NEC. Some time ago, I asked him to explain to me what pre-campaigning really is under the new election law of Liberia.
Pre-campaigning is any activity that is engaged in by a political party or an individual who intends to contest the election to put that person ahead of the other candidate or aspirants or political parties. For instance, what we consider as pre-campaign is if somebody makes a statement, that seeks to solicit votes on his behalf, put out promotional materials like pictures, like with wordings, trying to entice people to support him. Those are the things that we consider as pre-campaign. Of course, in the regulation, in the political parties regulation, there are activities that political parties are permitted to engage in, like, holding membership drive. It's permitted for political parties to go out and, recruit members. It is permitted for political parties.
But how can one recruit members without, enticing the public?
Oh, yeah. What we mean, if you're recruiting members, for instance, you go in a community, you are permitted to lay out your platform. In recruiting members, you are selling the institution because you are recruiting the members to the institution.
Is that pre-campaigning?
No. In campaign, you are selling individuals. That is the difference. So when you go out to recruit Banana Party, for instance, you're going to say Banana Party aspires to increase job or do whatever that they wish to do. That, in our case, you are selling an institution. But when you start to sell individuals to give them undue advantage ahead of the other people, that is what we frown upon.
That was Mr. Joseph Yasia, a Liberian elections expert.
For all they say, we go to school, so no job for all, we get pregnant. Hustling in the screen and they have money behind do. I think they want to all they take our market. What do we want to do now?
Well, I'm a graduate of the state-run university, and everywhere I have applied, they are asking me for 10 years experience, and that is impossible.
We the AFL them widows, the government promised us our husbands benefits, and up to now we can't see it.
No good road, no good school. The health sector poor. Now anything that can jack a boat, the politicians stay giving us empty promises. What happened now?
Who the just? In fact, who rather lay in a complaint to? They will listen to all what they in power. Now, the election time, people know how important. After election, when we talk, they say we are Muslim minority.
Yeah. They say the evil a man does live after him, but the good is often interred with his own. So let it be with Caesar. And what for Clipper? If for
Edition number 3 of 2023 Elections Update is over. This is a half-hour radio program exclusively devoted to elections issues in the countdown to the 2023 presidential and legislative elections. A PTMG production and presented by me, Frank Sainworla, in partnership with this radio station every week. Ballots, not bullets. Public Trust Media Group PTMG presents 2023 Elections Update, keeping track of the electoral process. This program promotes free, fair, transparent, credible, and violence-free electoral process. I'm Frank Sainworla in Monrovia, and this is edition number 7.
This is the time we come together to keep our country safe forever.
As Liberians prepare to go to the polls, this is a half-hour radio program exclusively devoted to election issues in the countdown to the 2023 presidential and legislative elections. In the update today, the National Elections Commission makes commitment to holding free, fair, and credible elections on October 10 as NEC formally launches the Voter and Civic Education Program.
We launched today to create maximum visibility and adequate information to the general public about the commencement today of the civil voter education outreach activity for 2023.
The deaf, or people with hearing impairment, say they don't want to be left out of the electoral process. A lead campaigner of the deaf, Miss Roberta Gui, speaks on their behalf.
We have come, so you will see us as we are. We are Liberians. We have rights. We need to be loved and included in everything.
USAID Mission Director in Liberia, Jim Wright, says Liberians should be proud of themselves for achieving nearly 20 years of democratic governance.
So Liberia can be proud, you all can be proud of that. However, for that to continue, we all have to work very, very hard. The NEC is working hard, has a lot of work to do in the next few months to ensure that Liberia continues to
pressing for a rights-based electoral process. The Secretary General of the National Human Rights Advocacy Platform, Adaman Dempster, outlined some human rights concerns ahead of the presidential and legislative elections.
We will be analyzing election issues from the human rights-based approach so that the space is not made small for us when it comes to doing real ethical election work as we move towards
2023. Election is crucial to the building of every democracy. Election is everybody's business. 2023 Elections Update is a PTMG production in partnership with this station every week and as a podcast online. So let's stay focused on the issues in the countdown to the October polls. Ballots, not bullets.
Ladies and gentlemen, election is not war. Election is not confusion. Election is not animation. Election is not division. Election is not tribalism. Election is not confrontation. Election is not hatred. Election is not war. I want to let my people know that.
Thanks for joining us. On the electoral calendar is the period for the official launch of the National Voter and Civic Education Exercise. On Friday, February 24, 2023, a ceremony was held at the National Elections Commission headquarters in Sinka to officially kick off the exercise. The ceremony began with a parade from Broad Street to NEC headquarters on 9th Street in Sinka.
Before
No political party attended the ceremony. The House and Senate committees on elections stay away for reasons not established. But Liberia's development partners, including USAID, the Swedish Embassy, the UNDP, and the UN system, attended the program. Civil society organizations and civic and voter education cells were also represented at Friday's ceremony. Next co-chair, Councillor Tipla Reeves, who acted on behalf of the chair, Deviated Brown Lansanan, launched the National CVE initiative.
The Commission seeks to reach you as stakeholders and every citizen to help us understand the following process and procedures to conduct a peaceful elections on October 10, 2020. We launched today to create maximum visibility and adequate information to the general public about the commencement today of the civil voters education outreach activity for 2023. As you can see, my colleagues were worried about me. I walked from the cathedral to Crown Hill. In quest that they thought I couldn't make it. But I made it because we want this day to go forward to every village, to every hamlet, to every district, to every community, to every Liberian, to create adequate awareness. No one will be left behind in 2023. We trust and believe that will happen as the National Elections Commission decides to do that. Through our 81 CVE cells, we try to encourage all citizens, irrespective of your status, and that have attained the age of 18 years and above, to take out, to register during the period of voter registration exercise. The exercise starts on March 20th, so it ends on May 11th. At this time, it's your right to register, and will be your right to cast the ballot to whoever you choose. By the power now invested in by the Constitution of the Republic of Liberia, on behalf of our chairperson and the Board of Commissioners, I declare civil voter education open. Knock on doors to tell them a new day is bright. Come on, register and vote. I thank you.
At the same time, a NEC Commissioner, Boyka Dukle, pledged that the National Electoral Body will deliver nothing less than free, fair, transparent, and credible elections.
Let me just quickly pledge what I want you to do about that. We pledge to conduct a free, fair, and transparent election. This is our pledge to you, the international community, and this is our pledge to you, Liberian people.
That was NEC Commissioner Boyka Dukle. Well, the United States Aid for International Development, USAID, says Liberians should be proud of themselves for achieving nearly 20 years of democratic governance. Mr. Jim Wright is USAID's Liberia Mission Director, and he spoke at the launch of the NEC Civic and Voter Education Program.
Liberia is different. Liberia has shown its strength in giving its citizens the ability to express themselves, freedom of press, freedom of expression, and the ability to choose leaders, to hold their leaders accountable, to make sure that they are serving the people. So Liberia can be proud, you all can be proud of that. However, for that to continue, we all have to work very, very hard. The NEC is working hard, has a lot of work to do in the next few months to ensure that Liberia continues to enjoy that precious democracy. I have the importance of the community organization and the organizations like the CVEs talking directly to the people and telling them what's happening, telling them what the truth is.
That was USAID Director Jim Wright. At the launch of the NEC CVE program, UNDP Liberia Chief Technical Advisor on Elections, Dr. Kenka Homolkalvo, represented the UN system in Liberia and acknowledged the gains so far made in the electoral process.
I actually stand here representing the UN Resident Coordinator who is engaged somewhere else, Madam Christine Umutoni. So I'm going to make a few remarks on behalf of the UN in her stead. So I just want to start by commending the NEC for the launch of the CVE activities and for the CVE cells. We all know what the purpose of this launch is. Essentially is to inform, to educate, and increase awareness of the public about these cells. And also to ensure that all citizens take ownership of the civic and voter education activities. And we particularly want to underline the need for students, first-time voters, women, and community members to join this effort. We all, of course, are also aware of why we need civic and voter education, because in any democracy, civic and voter education is necessary to ensure that citizens are aware and are engaged in the political process. In light of this, I'm very happy and delighted to participate in this first step towards fostering democracy, good governance, and voter involvement. Of course, in terms of the work that has gone on to date, we also want to recognize the work that has gone into the formation of the CVE cells. We know there's been a lot of training done, there have been discussions across the country, and that the CVE cells are represented in all 73 electoral districts. And as you can see, a very diverse group made up of men, women, youth, and so on.
That was the Chief UNDP Technical Advisor on Elections, Dr. Kenka Homolkalvo.
Let the old and the young come together as one as we start on this new road to realize our goal in a land where peace and justice shall be the right of every man.
The deaf or people with hearing impairment is a sizable disabled community estimated at more than 50,000 people in Liberia were represented. They want inclusion in the electoral process by introducing sign language in every aspect of the elections. The civic and voter education launch on Friday featured the deaf community. Our 2023 elections update reporter said at least 20 hearing impaired or deaf people, mostly young women, attended both the street parade and the indoor program. If you are wondering how they understood the speeches and performances at the CVE launch at the NEC headquarters, well, they took along their interpreter. After the civic and voter education launch, a lead campaigner of the deaf, Ms. Roberta Gui, spoke through an interpreter regarding the need for the rights of the deaf to be supported through their organization's Total Dignity Initiative.
I and all my friends who are deaf in Liberia are grateful to the National Elections Commission for bringing us in the front of this voter election event. I thank God for the organization of Total Dignity Institute for always standing with us in our challenges. TDI has been there for us since 2014 when the country had Ebola. One, the deaf could hear information from the health ministry, but TDI partnered with UNDP and they taught us how to stay safe. UNDP built us hand washing things in our deaf schools and camps. We want to say here publicly that our organization needs support to make deaf people participate in the election. Because we don't have the voice for you to hear, a lot happened to us. Our rights are easily violated. Some of us suffer sexual violence. The police don't have the ability to hear us. Some of us stay away from hospital when we get sick because nobody hears us. Election time, most deaf people don't vote because they don't know the proper information. We have come so you will see us as we are. We are Liberians. We have rights. We need to be loved and included in everything.
Ms. Roberta Gui, who spoke through an interpreter on behalf of the deaf people in Liberia at the launch of the NEC Voter and Civic Education Program on Friday, February 24, 2023.
We took this break to bring you this special information. Public Trust Media Group, along with several radio stations, including this station, brings this weekly production of 2023 Elections Update to fill you in with the laws, processes, and happenings relating to Liberia's elections on October 10. This program informs and educates you, our listeners, including first-time voters. Public Trust Media Group, however, looks up to you, Liberia's development partners, civil society organizations, and pro-democracy group for partnership and sponsorship of this program. Please email us on fsainworla@yahoo.com or call 0770-755-173 or 0888-311573. Thanks for being part of the change maker.
If you've just joined us, this is 2023 Elections Update, a half-hour radio program exclusively devoted to elections in the countdown to the 2023 presidential and legislative elections. Welcome, I'm Frank Sainworla. This is edition number 7. Elections Update is heard on this station every week. Thanks to our radio partners for airing this show. ECOWAS Radio 91.5 and 97.1 FM. Truth FM 96.1, Banner FM 98.5, Prime FM 105.5, United Methodist Radio 98.7, Lux FM 106.5, as well as Power FM 93.3, keeping track of the electoral process. This program focuses on the issues, not personalities, spotlighting the laws, guidelines, and regulations governing the election, as well as the civic roles and responsibilities of both voters and those to be voted for. It is a Public Trust Media Group PTMG production in partnership with this station every week and as a podcast online.
Wake up, Mother Liberia, wake up, wake up. Wake up, Mother Liberia, wake up. The word is here to wake you up.
And Finally, on 2023 elections update, we are turning our attention in this edition to human rights on the road to the October 10 polls. The National Human Rights Advocacy Platform is pressing for a rights-based electoral process. The Secretary General of the Rights Platform, Adamant Dempster, has been outlining some human rights concerns ahead of the presidential and legislative elections. That's coming up shortly.
Who can say where the road goes, where the day flows? Only time. And who can say if your love grows as your heart shows? Only time.
Welcome to 2023 elections update. We have with us Mr. Adama Dempster. He is the Secretary General of the National Human Rights Advocacy Platform. Mr. Dempster, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure and good to be connected with you again, Big Brother, and of course I look forward to a positive discussion.
Okay, we're on the verge of first biometric voter registration and then eventually onto the campaign period from August and then elections on the 10th of October. This program has actually been looking at the various aspects of the elections in the run-up. You know, elections is a process. As a human rights advocate and major human rights executive in the country, what can you say regarding human rights as we prepare to go to the polls?
Wow. So this is a fascinating conversation, and I think it allows us to point out key concerns from a human rights-based approach ahead of the elections 2023. So first of all, let me use this opportunity to speak to the current situation that has to do with the attack. That is in the wake of 1 month, 3 attacks, attempted attack on the home of former Chief Justice and permanent citizens who serve in the human rights community.
And she also used to be Councillor Glover Scott, also used to be former head of the Elections Commission.
Yes, so this attack actually is worrisome, and we think ahead of election, with the kind of insecurity situation that is looming, it's kind of worrisome. So we have come to a point from the human rights community to actually call on the government of Liberia to put a protection mechanism into place that will protect all citizens, and especially permanent citizens within the countries and human rights defenders who will be critical on election issues, who will be analyzing election issues from the human rights-based approach so that the space is not made small for us when it comes to doing real ethical election work as we move towards 2023.
What happened to Justice Scott, Gloria Scott, has to do with human security, personal security. As a human rights activist and advocate and major player in the human rights community, both locally and internationally, what can you say as we prepare to go to the polls concerning that aspect of human security? Is it a concern at the community level?
Personal security, human security within a country lies squarely with the government, because under no circumstances that if all of us, individual citizens, will be parading with our own personal guards for security, that will be communicating another concern. So what is quite expected is that the government should put mechanisms into place that will protect everyone. That is, you have a strong rule of law, you have an effective security sector to police on the alert to respond to this kind of emergency. Those are the kind of things that should be put into place at our country level. But unfortunately, that has not happened. 3 times in 1 month. One person's home is very prominent woman. I mean, human rights actors during the 1990s, homes have been invaded by unknown armed men is worrisome. So personal security, therefore we call it on the government that protection under international human rights obligation. The government is the duty bearer. It's the government that should protect everyone that lives within the border.
What will you say about what happens in the communities, on the streets, even Broad Street, on a daily basis? There are accounts of people's cell phones being taken at knife point, people wielding cutlasses, and then surprisingly, bystanders simply watch as those people are being terrorized.
So, I mean, those are just some of the contributing factors where we came from a very long back-to-back civil war, and we have not restored, we have not healed. You have our youthful population who grew out of the civil war, and that were introduced to drugs, and they're introduced to a pattern of not formally being brought out. So, as a result, you got more youth who are on drugs, you got more active youth in our society who have no skill, but rather than just using the means of crime in our community to be able to scare people, snatch people belongings, and then walk away. And you do not have the robust response mechanism from the police, which I will have to say that because across the 15 counties, these are almost the same events or actions that are taking place in those places. So it's worrisome for us. So if we talk about human security, personal security, oneself, how many persons have the capacity to hire their own personal security in this country? It's not possible. So that's why we go back to the government, because it's the government that is squarely responsible to ensure security. So there has to be a mechanism to fight crime, to fight these kind of incidences that are happening in our society. It's scary.
Are you suggesting that the government is not doing enough?
So, there has to be indicators, and the indicators will have to show has crime rate been reduced in our society. You can be the judge. You are the judge. Has the issue of attack on people at night time on our streets, has it been reduced? You are the judge. So these are all concerns. Sociology will tell you that crime is part of society. But in the events of crime being part of the society, there has to be mechanism to control, to put an end, or to minimize or stop the issue of crime. So these are the kind of things we are calling on our own government through the judicial justice, national security, to put this mechanism into place. And it's important at this juncture because we are going to election. Thereby bring me back to the issue of militancy, which I will expand more. But this is something that is more of a grave concern that has to do with protection. That is the human right to life, need to be protected at all costs from the Universal Declaration on Human Rights.
The Secretary General of the National Human Rights Advocacy Platform, Adaman Dempster, edition number 7 of 2023 Elections Update is over. This is a half-hour radio program exclusively devoted to elections issues. In the countdown to the 2023 polls, a public trust media group PTMG production, and it's presented by me, Frank Sainworla, in partnership with this station, Ballot Not Bullets.